Welcome to Scofield Farm. I'm Carice, and today I am going to be reflecting on 2024 gardening and homesteading year and just thinking about what were my top challenges or failures, what were the top successes, and what was the most important thing that was a win last year in gardening and homesteading. I want to share that with you today. I'm on a walk with my girls, with my dog. We finally don't have rain after almost a month and a half of rain with very few breaks in between. So we're taking advantage of it. Not a whole lot of sunshine yet, but a nice time to get outside and just enjoy the day. When I think back about this last year, the first thing that I would say that went wrong was one of my 2 bee colonies absconded. And what that is absconded just means they left. I don't know entirely why. Usually absconding is not a positive thing. I know that. A bee colony's reproduction is swarming. What they do is they get so crowded, they reproduce. They usually fly off with the old queen to go make another colony somewhere else. They leave behind half the colony. They raise a new queen. Absconding is different. Absconding is when something goes wrong. Oh my gosh, my dog's not listening to me. Come here, come on, to me, to me. Absconding is when they leave. Usually there's a problem. It could be food, it could be disease, it could be mites, it could be all sorts of things, sometimes pesticides, lots of different issues. One of my colonies absconded, one stayed. I feel like this year I did not care for my bees as well as I could have. That's an admission of my failure and fault. I've been a backyard beekeeper. Woo, I'm unwinding myself from the dog. Backyard beekeeper for almost 3 years. We had our colonies make it through the winter successfully, both winters that we overwintered bees. This year we're only overwintering one colony, and I'm hoping they make it. As I said, I don't feel like we took care of our bees as well as we could have. There's a lot of reasons for this. I'm already looking towards the new year and what I can do differently, how I can be more hands-on, and how we can prevent this from happening in the future, and hopefully add another colony, another nuke of bees or something, so we can have 2 hives again. When you keep bees, it's better to keep 2 hives than 1 for a lot of reasons. It's almost the exact same amount of work. So that's the goal for that problem and failure this year on the homestead. Real fast, if you want like real garden homesteading content from a not perfect person or family, but that actually do grow food, do involve our kids in everything we do, you can always subscribe. You can always like this video, comment. I like to hear from people. I love to have dialogue. Hear the things that you find as successful and the things that you find as challenges on your own homestead or your garden, whether that's on property like we have in Northern California, or maybe it's just like a backyard or porch garden in a normal neighborhood on an apartment balcony. You can be an urban homesteader, gardener. It is a thing. It really is cool. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you in the comments, but yeah, let's keep going. This doggy is not always wanting to listen to me when there's distractions around here. Are ya? Another failure on our homestead this year was so many pests in our garden. So many pests, more than any other year. We have grown food on our property for 6 summers, and this summer was by far the most challenging, especially with pests, be it ground squirrels that finally discovered our vegetable garden. There are a lot of ground squirrels in our area. They look like little chipmunks if you're not familiar with them. We're in Northern California, Zone 9B. Even my sister, who lives a couple miles from us, is inundated with ground squirrels. We have been spared until this year. They would steal tomatoes, all sorts of things, right when they started to barely get ripe. And so I would pick a tomato and one side of it was completely emptied out. So disappointing. They also wreaked havoc in our paths, in the garden beds. We had gophers. We've always had gophers in the front of our property, our front yard. We don't really have lawn, but they hadn't really done a whole lot in the vegetable garden. We do raised beds, which have hardware cloth underneath them to protect from gophers, but they got into our one bed that's in the ground. It was a potato patch. They stole a huge ground cherry plant, just gone. Stole several other plants. I had to pivot on my plans to plant sweet potatoes in that one amended in-ground bed, and had to decide to do them in grow bags because of how badly they were stealing things. And we bought a really nice gopher trap that we never caught any gophers in, so that felt like a waste of money. Had a ground squirrel trap. We only caught like one ground squirrel. I know there's more. I see them. My dog thinks they're friends. Chases them, but not to hurt them, to play with them. It's just been a nightmare. We've had birds that ate most of the brassicas that I planted out. I don't know why I didn't remember to put bird netting down. It's just been that kind of year. I can't even tell you how many pests I'm trying to even think and remember. I just know this year, one of my biggest frustrations was that growing food was riddled with pests. Oh, the ground squirrels. The ground squirrels had like their colony tunnel thing close to my apple trees, my peach trees, and they ate all the immature peaches and apples off the trees before they even ripened. We only got a few peaches off one peach tree, and that was really disappointing because the other one was loaded. They took every single last one. Deer often do the same thing. I don't know if it was the deer that took the apples or the ground squirrels. I'm suspecting it was the deer because all the leaves off that apple tree that I thought we had a little fence around, the leaves were gone as well. Just been that year. I think reflection on what goes right, what goes wrong is really important in all aspects of our life. Those dogs barking, that's not fun, but that's living in the country for you. It's really important to all areas of our life. It's really key. And I think it's how we can improve and grow if we can be honest with some sort of self-reflection. The third thing that felt like a fail on our homestead in our garden was we tried to build a second chicken coop because we have bantam birds, we have full-size birds, we let our hens hatch out chicks. We end up often with extra roosters, and then we actually eat the extra ones. Don't worry, we keep a lot of roosters for our hens living out in the country, but there is a ratio that ends up being too many. Well, there's a lot of reasons we could use and utilize a second coop really well. The problem is we didn't quite finish, and we didn't realize it until these heavy rains came. My husband had a bunch of corrugated metal to put on as a roof, but we just didn't realize we didn't do it. And then the second coop was leaking. It was gross and wet. Luckily, the birds are smart enough to not be in there in the wet. They all went into the first coop, made it a little too crowded. There's pecking order issues. We ended up being one corrugated metal sheet short right when our truck vehicle died and we couldn't haul anything. So we had to tarp our second chicken coop with all the rains. It was just not ideal. We didn't put one of the hinge doors to check for eggs, and so it's actually possible to get stuck in the coop when we're looking for eggs. If you go in, there's supposed to be a string latch for the door. It broke. My son was stuck in the coop for like 20 minutes. He ended up crawling out of the little chicken door to get out because we didn't know. Those are lots of fails. Those are a lot of real fails on the homestead, things that we just should have like finished and buttoned up a little better. Our first coop was this great coop. Our second one, I feel like it's just been a hard year, and to actually finish things well did not happen as we had hoped. We also would love to put a run on it. We free range our chickens completely. They don't spend time in their run. However, if there's a reason to isolate chickens, it's good for them to have a run and not just be in a coop. Also, if we needed to go out of town or something for a day or two, didn't need someone to watch them, they could live happily a coop with a run for a few days. And that would be reasonable, except, you know, there's no run in the second coop. There was no way to utilize things that way. We have to have someone come and check the chickens even on times, you know, that it wouldn't be very long. So finishing that would be an easy solution, right? Finishing up the coop, that is a goal for the start of this year in the winter time. But being real with you guys, like, things don't always get finished the way we hope to. It does feel like a fail, but at least it's a fail that we can fix. Okay, let's get to some of the things that went right this year. Some of the things that went right. Okay, this is good. We got a lot of garlic. We actually didn't only get a lot of garlic, we got a lot of loofah. We got a lot of cucumbers. It's the best cucumber year we have had in several years. I was able to make a lot of pickles. We ate a lot of fresh cucumber. It was our best year for tomatillos. We've only grown them a couple years, had some bad years. That was great. We made a lot of salsa verde. Also, it was our first successful harvest of fuyu persimmons. A dream of mine has always been to grow our own fruit. We have 7 kids. We eat a lot of fruit, like a ton of fruit. So getting a really good fuyu persimmon harvest off of a pretty small tree was wonderful. I love persimmons. If you haven't had them before, they are so tasty. They are so worth growing. We had so much garlic that, well, I save my own garlic to plant from. We plant the biggest cloves for next year's harvest. We dry a lot of garlic to make dried garlic powder? Garlic powder, that's what you call it. I forgot what it was called. Oh my gosh. I sell garlic. I give garlic away to my mom, to my siblings. I made a really good Italian seasoned artisan salt that had garlic in it. I traded garlic for some great canning jars just recently. I have so much garlic. That was definitely a win this year. That's one of our favorite things to grow too. So I feel successful about that. That was awesome and I celebrate it. We also had so many zinnia this year. It was like the year of the zinnia. They grew in the garden beds where we planted them and in the pathways. It made it slightly a jungle, but I would say that still was definitely a win this year. Another win in the garden is with the infrastructure. We added 2 new 4x12 garden beds. My husband also expanded all the irrigation. So we had a certain amount of garden beds. I'm trying to think, it was like 8 or so on the same irrigation valve. We were losing pressure on the beds at the end. So he added a whole second valve so that our garden would be adequately watered. Also the parts that were in ground, like the potato patch, I was hand watered. I didn't have to anymore. So that was definitely a win. Getting infrastructure like the way you want it will help every garden season to come. My favorite part of this walk is the view of the pond across the street from our house. It's not technically our pond, but our sunsets every night are over this pond and reflected in this pond, and it's one of my favorite things of living out here. How can I not include our citrus in our successes? Because yeah, look at that. I got to put mandarins in the toe of all of our stockings. We have quite a few citrus trees in ground and in pots. Look at those lemons. Meyer lemons for the win. They're a really good size too. See that? That's great. Definitely winning in the citrus department this year. Another thing we did for irrigation was we put all of these like pots right here in the front of the house, all of them on drip. We got some sort of drip to all of our fruit trees besides our fig trees and our plum trees that are kind of out by the street. We did not get irrigation to that, but most of our fruit trees we got irrigation to. Even the citrus that are in pots, we ran irrigation to them. Part of the reason we got this much irrigation done was because we left the country for 2 weeks to see my husband's family in Guatemala. It was such a blessing trip to take all 7 kids to see where my husband grew up. He is not Guatemalan. His family actually lived there as missionaries for all of his teen years. So he feels Guatemalan at heart. His face is a little bit Irish. So it is a very special place for us. It was the first time some of my younger kids had been there. The older kids had been such a long time, they didn't remember a lot. It was precious. I have a video of just showing kind of vlog style our trip. I'll put that in the description as well. But that was a big motivation of getting all the irrigation in the veggie garden, most of the fruit trees, all of the potted things out front dialed in so that when we left the hottest time of year, we didn't even know it'd be the hottest time of year. We went in June. June's usually not the hottest month in Northern California. However, we had a literal record-breaking day of one of the hottest days ever here. It officially was 120, I think. A lot of people said that their thermometers in their gardens on their property were 122 to 124. So needless to say, it was so hot. I was so thankful to know that all my plants were being watered in the record-breaking heat. That was absolutely a win. When you live someplace that has as hot summers as we do, as dry summers as we do, our rain is all in the winter. Just like I told you, we've had a big long streak of rain, and our heat and our dryness is all in the summer. We're a Mediterranean climate, and it's a different type of gardening here. So irrigation to grow food is very needed. You have real life porch, real life dying canna behind me. Real life on this channel, folks. All right, my next success was we grew potatoes and sweet potatoes in grow bags for the first year. We planned on growing the potatoes in grow bags to give our potato patch a rest from potatoes. So that was purposeful. I researched it. We did 30-gallon grow bags. I used some soil from, actually, it was really good soil that was used once by a local friend who does microgreen farming. And so she uses the soil once for microgreens really fast, and then she resells it and starts fresh. It has actually got a lot of nutrients in it. I filled those 30-gallon grow bags with that. Then we mulched it with alfalfa hay, and they did great. I have a whole video about our kind of humorous harvest of potatoes from grow bags. I can link that in the description below. We also grew sweet potatoes in grow bags for the first time, and that was because it was a quick pivot from the gopher issue in my former potato patch, former cabbage patch. Well, they actually did pretty good. They did better than I thought. I got them in later than I thought I would, just because of all the pivoting we had to do. And, you know, I would say that that was actually a win. Would I grow them in containers like grow bags again? I think I probably would. I didn't get quite as many as I wanted sweet potatoes, but I got a good harvest for the size. I didn't get really that many less good ones as when I grew them in a huge garden bed. So it was definitely considered a success. Now, if you made it this far, I was going to share my most important win on our homestead in the garden this year is that we simply didn't give up. My husband and I both had a lot of physical issues this year. At the end of last year, in December, he had knee surgery. In January of 2024, I had shoulder surgery, was in an immobilizer brace for 6.5 weeks, couldn't drive for 4 months of 2024, couldn't drive. Well, I have 7 kids who are involved in sports and dance, and we pastor a small local church, and it's just like I couldn't do the things I wanted to do both on my homestead, with my family, in ministry, in all sorts of ways. And the fact that we had so many pests, we had things go wrong with our bees, we had things go wrong in our garden, we had things go wrong with the chicken coop, that we didn't quit was a major victory, because as I look towards the new year, and I know there'll be challenges that we don't foresee in life and in homesteading and in growing food and gardening, I know that that muscle of resilience and perseverance has been exercised. We overcame a lot of obstacles. We kept going, even when there were a lot of times it was very tempting just to throw in the towel and quit and say, like, gosh, we're just going to take a year off of growing food. But we didn't quit. We kept trying to adjust. We kept trying to rebound. We did the little we could, and sometimes that actually was little, and sometimes that was not enough. It wasn't quite enough for our bees. I feel personally responsible for the absconding. I know a lot of beekeepers lose bees here and there, but I feel like because of our year, we didn't do as much as we could. Well, we did as much as we could, but it's not as much as we should. And as a recovering perfectionist, a recovering idealist, I have to realize that doing what we can is enough, even when it means failure, because we can grow and learn from failure. And we're in this for the long haul. We are not just doing this for our homesteading, gardening era. This is a way of life. There are going to be failures and there's going to be things to overcome. And I'm going to try to be honest and share them with you as we go, so that you could also be encouraged when you have homesteading failures, when you have gardening challenges. You know you're not alone. You know that there's other people who are doing this imperfectly, who are willing to learn and change and adjust and keep going. Thanks for joining me on my walk, on my reflection time, and I am looking forward to this new year. I hope you are too. Let's grow a lot of good things. Let's learn how to raise our own food, how to cook our own food, how to take care of families, and how to honor God with how we treat the earth and each other. I will see you in the next video.